All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand, the number one podcast in the world for entrepreneurs and leaders who want to build industry-leading brands. If you tuned in live, go ahead and put some flames in the chat and also let us know where you're listening in from. Of course, I have with me the man, Bobby Stealth, and we have some interesting content to get into today. How you doing, Bobby?
Doing great, Junior. I'm doing great. I've got a confession to make.
Okay.
I didn't run this morning, guys. I didn't run. But the reason I did not run is because of safety. So I run outside. I do not run on the treadmill on Saturdays, and I'm doing 7+ miles. But I still felt convicted. It was raining. I was like, I've ran in the rain before. And then I heard the kind of lightning that makes you think something's on fire. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't go outside right now and run in the rain. But I felt so convicted. I was like, maybe I should. But then I looked over to my wife and my kids, and I was like, I got responsibilities. I gotta cool it sometimes. So I'll be running this evening, but I'm feeling absolutely amazing. But I can tell that the energy I get when I go on that morning run and I bring it to the call is going to be a little bit different. Still energetic, but a little bit different.
Man, I think you made the right call.
Yeah.
No, Bobby, I'm from a place where I tell people all the time, you know, like how you guys have you have spring, summer, autumn, winter, and stuff like that. That's the 4 seasons. We have 2 seasons here. It's either the rainy season, or look at that. It's either the rainy season or the dry season, man. We don't have 4 seasons. We have 2 seasons. So either it's very hot, and in that case, you have hurricanes, or it's very wet, and then you have a lot of rain. So I think you made the right call because, when you have winds and stuff like that, stuff comes flying, man. I mean, galvanized is flying, poles are detaching. So I'm used to that kind of stuff. I think you made the right call staying inside.
Yeah. Hurt the pride. Us Marines, we think everything is doable, and it is to a degree, but I agree, Junior. Safety first, guys. Safety first.
100%. I want to send a few shout outs. Let's see. I see Brooklyn in the house. All right, Brooklyn. Okay, I see Shade. Shout out to Shade. Yeah, shout out to Shade. It's been a little while, Shade. How you doing? Put it in the chat. I see Tia. So Tia coming in from New Jersey, right next door to New York. And then we have Bradley coming in from Texas. So shout out to all of you. Listen, guys, we're about to get into something amazing as usual. But as usual, if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. This is 100% live, and we are here to answer all of your phenomenal questions. So, Bobby, before we go to the first break, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Yes. If you all right now feel like execution, getting things done, moving faster is something that can be improved, like I can do more. I know I can do more, or I can be more efficient. I know I can be more efficient. Don't miss this call. Do not miss this call. We'll give you guys the topic when you come right back, but just keep in mind, where do results come from? Remember the kids asked the question, where do babies come from, mommy? Where do results come from? That's what we'll be talking about.
I said Shaan right east. I'm proud. I said Shaan right east. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire, heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business.
We are the brand. Some people say, Shaan, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold in your beliefs.
He has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
All right, guys, welcome back. I see Dr. Michelle. Quick shout out to Dr. Michelle. She says, super sensational Saturday, gentlemen. Super sensational Saturday, Dr. Michelle. Yes, yes. So, Bobby, let's get into it. I know we're talking about implementation, right? This morning.
Yeah, so today's topic, guys, is implementation and execution. These are the cornerstones of results. Like, where do results come from? They come from implementation and they come from execution. There's something we say here at the brand. If you've been around any amount of time, you've heard it before. Everybody wants to know ROI, return on investment, return on investment, return on investment. Well, that comes from SOI, speed of implementation. Now, the speed is just one factor, because if you can't implement or you're implementing ineffectively, then all the speed in the world is going to get you nowhere. As Junior always says, he's like, you might be doing work, but if you're not doing the right work, then the work you're doing is just digging you in a deeper hole. It's not getting you where you want to go. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to execute, how to get information, the right information, and implement it with strategic and wise tactics, with wisdom and strategy. Wisdom, strategy, and simplicity. So, Junior, you're a systems guy. And a lot of these individuals are building their businesses. And as of right now, they are the system, right? Everything that gets done in the business is because they remembered to do it, right? And anything that doesn't get done in the business is because they forgot, they just, or didn't have the time. So as a systems thinker, what are some of the first systems that they can build out that don't require technology? Some of the routines that could be systems, disciplines that could be systems. Granted, we know systems cost money, technology and all that stuff is necessary down the road, but what can they do now?
Bobby, we have to define that a little bit more. So, systems is so broad. I mean, everything in society is a system, like literally everything. So, can you give me a little bit more context around?
Sure.
Are we referring to business systems? Are we referring to personal systems? Lead generation. So, can you be a little bit more specific in terms of the kind of system?
Yeah. Audience, what types of systems do you guys need? I'm going to think of one, but if you guys have one and you're like, hey, this is what I need now, like lead generation system, like put it in the chat. Junior will be more than happy to give you some insights. But I believe that a good system that we could talk about is one around marketing and producing content without having that type of background. Because I believe a lot of people aren't, say, marketing experts and things of that nature, but they may be coaches, consultants, speakers, leaders, but they don't have that background. So how can they systematize their marketing efforts if they don't fancy themselves as a technology guru or as someone that's really good with marketing systems?
Well, I mean, it's all about leverage. So let's just say I wasn't a systems guy. I didn't know anything about systems, and I was just looking to market myself. The first thing I would do is I would look to leverage already existing systems. So systems that already exist. So there are systems, particularly artificial intelligence systems, that will really help you when it comes to content creation. Like it really assists as far as, increasing the amount of content that you generate, as well as helping you develop content strategy. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to content, we have to really break it down into like what's going to make you successful. So this is just the way I think. Now, not everybody's a systematic thinker, so I'm just going to try to break it down or speak in a way that everybody could understand. So if I'm looking to do something like put out content, first thing I'm saying to myself, well, what would I need to put out content successfully? number one, I would need a topic. So you have to speak on something, right? You have to speak on whatever your subject matter expert is. So I would speak on that. But realistically, you have to find the best way to select the right topics. So the first factor that goes into successful content production is topics. So for me, I'm asking myself, how do I find the right topics? What is the right topic based on my niche? Because you could select a topic and speak and then have nobody really listen to your video or listen to your podcast or whatever you're doing. So you're looking for stuff that is trending, number one. So how do you find stuff that's trending? Well, you look for technology that could help you find stuff that's trending. I'll give you a good example. A good example is Google Trends. Google Trends is 100% free. Anybody can Google it, and they could see some of the topics that are currently trending. X is a great place to find out what's trending. Like, what are people actually talking about? Instagram, like using the Instagram Discovery tab, just going there, finding out what's happening there. What are people actually talking about as far as your niche is concerned? So you have to start with the right topic. Then after you have the right topic, you have to have the right delivery. So the right delivery meaning the right media, the right form of media. So based on the platform that you're communicating on, each platform has a preferred style of media. So Instagram, for example, Instagram is a very visual style platform, meaning that people go to Instagram because they want to see. It originally started with us posting pictures, right? So if you're posting to Instagram, you're looking for more visual style content in the form of reels or in the form of very eye-catching photography or posts. Okay. If you're looking, or if your style of content needs to be one that is written, then where's the best place to put that? That might be on X, or what we used to call Twitter. So you have to find the kind of content delivery. And then the next thing you need to know is, well, what about the platform? So what platform are you using? And what is the best time to post on those platforms? And how does it sort of work? And if you don't know any of that, I would just literally just Google that. I would just Google that, or I would find some existing technology that already exists, that already does the tough work and do the research and just tell me how to do that. There are platforms that will do that. There are platforms that will tell you topics that are currently trending. There are platforms that will tell you the best style or the best way to produce content. There are platforms that will tell you the best time to post content. So, Bobby, I think the biggest thing that business owners need to know or need to adapt or adopt rather is a style of reasoning as far as content production. If you could master or have the right reasoning when you're going to do stuff, not just content production, but anything when it comes to business, then it will greatly increase your chances of success.
Wow. I like to think about where the people are in the audience, like where they are right now. And I think as they are listening to this, they're probably like, wow, this is a lot of stuff to do, man. Wow. I don't want you to be overwhelmed, guys. I really don't. And what I want you to think about is how much people use social media, how much you use social media and how unoverwhelming it is to scroll and read and scroll and read. So why do I say that? Because when you're thinking about building and creating the content, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. But think about all the people that think that it's very fun to scroll and read, scroll and read. So I say that to say this. It may sound a little bit overwhelming, but this is the Pareto's principle at work. And Pareto's principle says that 20% of the work produces 80% of the results. If you sit down and you really think through the topic, think through the production, and just get it together, 80% of the work is already done. Because everybody, just like you, like to scroll. They like to read. They like to find out what's going to solve their problem. So I much rather you not feel overwhelmed with what you have to figure out how to do, but think of it in the way of like, man, if I just do these two things, get a good topic and put it on the right platform. If I just do those two things, social media algorithms and everything else is going to take care of half the battle. Like it's going to take care of the other 80%. And that's true because they do. Our ideal clients have habits and behaviors, and those behaviors are already set. So that's the power of a system.
Yeah.
It's the interdependencies of various functions working together. So your function is the creation of the content. The platform's function is the sustained attention of viewers. The combined functions of the two is putting quality content on a platform that sustains viewership and putting that content in front of the ideal viewer. That's the system. It's 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. And when you do it right, it's very, very effective. So as we dive into implementation, because we're talking about execution and implementation. So a lot of people take courses and are upset. They're like, oh man, this thing didn't work. Or they're like, I did this and I did that and it didn't work. Well, I have found that most people don't know the difference between what's known in the 40X world. And you may not know about the 40X world, but it's a execution model. And I'm going to give you guys some insights on execution. And me and Junior are going to have a discussion on how we prefer to execute. And you may be able to take some of these ideas and implement them into your own style. So in the 40X community, we talk about lead measures and lag measures. Most people focus on lag measures. So let me break down what those are. So let's say I wanted to lose weight, which a year ago I did. I was 194 pounds and I wanted to get back to about 150, 160. Now, during this time, I had a lag measure. That's the thing that I want to happen at the end. Your lag measure is whatever you're looking for as the end result. So I wanted to lose weight. That was the end result. In your business, it may be increased revenue. That's the end result. Or maximize profitability. That's the end result. Make more money. End result, right? So that's the lag measure. We call it the lag measure because it lags behind all the other work that has to be done. Okay. So if you want to make more money, the only way you can do that is by making more sales, making more calls, making more impact. All those different things are what we call lead measures because they lead to the lag measure. This is execution, like evidence-based, high-level execution thinking. So in a lead measure, there are 2 components. If you're taking notes, you want to write this down. I hope you're taking notes. All right. So there's 2 things that you have to be able to do to have a good lead measure so that you can optimize your execution. The activity that you do needs to be predictive and it needs to be influenceable. So if you have a lead measure, if you're trying to execute on something to produce a outcome, if you cannot predict the effects of your action and you cannot influence directly the action, it's not a good lead measure. For example, a lead measure for me to lose weight was calorie intake, how much food I'm eating, how many calories I'm eating, and caloric deficit, how many calories am I burning. I can control how much I eat and I can control how long I work out. So because I can predict also if I work out X amount of days a week and I burn 500 calories a day, it's predictive of how many calories I'm going to burn because 1 pound of fat is about 500 calories. So with all of that being said, we don't have to go that deep, but that's what you need to understand. You need to understand it's the work I'm doing predictive. If it goes to calls and you're trying to increase revenue, you might say, my lead measure is making calls because you know that if you make 100 calls, the likelihood of you getting 1 person is at least 10 to 20%. And then you can say, okay, that's something that I can control and that's something I can influence. So what's the next thing? The next thing would be a script because it's predictive. If I say the same thing over and over again, I can predict the same result. So we call that a lead measure. Those 2 lead measures would produce the lag measure desired, which is more appointments. Now, more appointments is something you cannot control. You can't control who sets appointment and who doesn't, but you can control the work you do to produce that result. So With that, we're about to dive into the execution piece, the implementation piece, and preferences. So with what I've broken down so far, Junior, how do you like to think about execution, and what do you do to drive results every day?
So I think of execution. Execution for me is sort of the 50%. So I'm 50% strategy, 50% execution. So I like to think things through, but I also like to strike a balance between not getting stuck in paralysis by analysis. So when I think of execution, I think of, okay, how can I remove constraints? So there's a theory of constraints. So let's say in a business, let's say a coaching business. So many of the people looking, they want to do a coaching business. Some people may have other kinds of businesses. My philosophy is that if, let's say, Shade decides he wants to start a coaching business, I believe that Shade's coaching business is already successful, meaning that he's already making $1 million. He's already, where he wants to be. It's just that Shade is currently experiencing a few constraints or roadblocks that is stopping him from getting there. So in theory, the perfect business or the successful business already exists. In practicality or in reality, the perfect business exists because what one can do, another can do. Meaning that if somebody could build a successful or $1 million coaching business, that Shade could do it too. However, Shade has a couple of constraints that is preventing him from getting to that $1 million. So the way that I think of execution is, how can I quickly identify and remove constraints stopping me from getting to that end goal? So for example, if my goal is to make $1 million, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking to myself, what are some of the constraints in my business right now that is stopping me from getting to $1 million? I list out the constraints and then I come up with new actions that I could take to remove constraints. So a constraint might be very low lead volume. So very low incoming lead volume might be a constraint, might be the first constraint for most people. Most people that I talk to, they tell me they want two things. They want more leads and they want better systems. That's it. So low lead volume might be the first constraint. And let's say Shade solves that constraint. So now Shade has a massive amount of leads coming in. Okay. His next constraint would be a conversion constraint. So how do I convert these people, these leads, into paying customers? If Shade performs an action that could successfully remove that constraint, now he has high lead volume or good lead volume coming in. He has a solid system to convert those leads into paying customers. And then he has to figure out the last constraint, which is, now that I've converted them into customers, how do I retain them? Mm-hmm. So if Shade can figure out how to bring in leads, turn them into customers, and develop a system to retain them, then I believe that Shade could get to $1 million per year. Easy. Does that make sense? So that's the way I think about it. Now, I'm talking about these constraints very loosely, but they are big constraints. Like, it takes a lot to solve that stuff. But is it solvable? Yes. If you could solve them, then you could get to your goal. So that's the way I think about it, Bobby.
Yes.
So hopefully that answers your question. And I know you had a follow-up question to that. What was the follow-up question?
I have no idea. This is all organic. I was going with the flow, Junior. I was going with the flow because.
But let me ask a quick question though, Bobby. So guys, do you understand where I'm coming from though? Because that's the way I look at it. I look at, like, what is the constraint? Like, what is the thing that we need to overcome? What is the roadblock? What is the thing that we need to overcome in order to get you closer to your goal? Literally. And if you could overcome those constraints successfully, then you could get to your goal. I believe that you can get to whatever goal you want. Literally, whatever goal you want.
Yeah, and I agree, because everybody wants pretty much the same things in the sense that people want income, impact, independence. They want family, freedom, and the ability to feel progress, to be moving in the right direction in their lives. And that's what most people want. And all of the things that we desire come from the execution or the action that we take. So I think that this is one of those conversations that we definitely should have more of, but we don't have it enough because nobody really cares about the execution in today's society. Most people just want what do they call us? The microwave society. We want it fast. Pop it in the microwave, take it out so I can eat it. And the reality is that's just not business. That's just not growth. And if we try to live or execute in that way, we'll realize why we're on the hamster wheel, going in circles, because real execution is a matter of the 4D framework, as Shaan taught it to me. Decide, discipline, develop, and dominate. So if you're looking to get results, you're looking to dominate. And domination begins with a decision. But we're very indecisive. And we're very indecisive because we don't want to commit. Because the moment we commit, we're stuck, so to speak, or at least that's how we look at it. And that's what discipline, that's what execution requires. It requires a degree of stubbornness, a degree of I'm doing this until it's done. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday. And that is like the truth, like the truth is if you really want to get something done and it's a bit grueling, you just got to do it till it's done. So we've got to make decisions. And then the next piece to the decision side of the house is after you decide, you've got to be disciplined. And the discipline piece is so crucial to execution because we call it the shiny object syndrome or squirrel syndrome. Every time someone sees a shiny object, they want to go do that or do that and do that. And the reality is if you just keep going to thing, then there's no decision that's been committed to. And then the discipline required is fleeting and it's never consistent or stable. And that leads to the third D, which is development. So much like a tree, when you plant a seed in the ground, you've got to be disciplined about where you want this tree to grow because you got to make a decision. Boom, break ground. Once you've broken ground, you've decided that that's where the tree's going to grow. And then there's this discipline aspect. So now you've got to cover it with the dirt, and the rain's going to do its part. It's going to rain regularly with the seasons, however often. And then the sun is disciplined. It's going to do its part. It's going to shine every day. And then you could be disciplined by pruning and cleaning whatever type of tree it is, doing the part that you have to do. That's the discipline piece. And then guess what? The tree develops. And as it develops, it goes down with its root system, then it sprouts up. Development. And that takes time. It takes time. But the sun can't stop shining or the tree stops growing. The rain can't stop pouring or the tree stops growing. You can't stop fertilizing, nurturing, or the tree stops growing. And then that's when we get to the domination space, which you've got some shade now. The tree is grown, it's big, it's blossomed, and you've got shade. So as we go to the break, I want you to think about some of the things that you've started and stopped. Some of the things that you decided on but didn't discipline yourself to do. Some of the things you disciplined yourself to do, but you weren't disciplined long enough for it to develop. Some of the things that started developing, but you couldn't see it, so you abandoned ship and was like, man, I was so close. Think about a few of those, because when we come back, we're going to talk about how to maximize the 4D framework.
When I think of brand you, I think of being your best self, your most authentic. The reason why we were able to crush business, absolutely dominate in business without having the marketing list, without having the email huge list, without having the Facebook ads and the advertising budget, without knowing the algorithm. The reason we were able to do this is because I branded myself. I told my authentic story and I was comfortable in my skin. Why? Because it was that time in the world where everything was shifting. It was 2020, March. So you remember what happened during that time. It was like the world was coming to an end. So you didn't have anything to hold back. So I chose to give everything that I had and be everything that I am. And because I was that, because I branded me, because I was authentic, everything shifted. And people wanted more. And they wanted to know more about me and how they could become more comfortable in their skin. Listen, guys, when you brand you and not what you do, you're gonna add a zero to the world, but you'll also add a zero to your revenue. Let's grow. So when you're young, mommy tells you to play nice. Play nice, Timmy. Let all of the other kids play too. But in business, it's not about playing nice. In business, it's about winning. It's about adding multiple zeros to your revenue. Now, of course, your staff wins. And when you win, other people win. However, when it comes to competition, you absolutely must dominate. You can't play for participation, and you can't play just to get along or just to get by, because business is serious. Business will help you to change the world, or the world will change you. Your people will either win or your people will lose based on your level of leadership, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how much you know about dominating.
Yes.
All right, guys. So we are back, and we've been talking a lot about execution. Bobby, you've asked me some really, really good questions, man. I must say.
Yes. I'm enjoying it too. I'm enjoying it as well. So if you guys are enjoying this, put a 1 in the chat. Actually, put a 2 in the chat if you're actively in a course right now, or you actively have a coach, because we're all getting coaching, or we're all in a course or out of a course, you know. And what we're about to talk about now is really how to make the most of a course. I was going through Shaan's courses and I was getting like so much information. I was like, I'm going to write a book called How to Take a Course with Shaan Rais, because I'm going to help somebody. It's so much information. It's like they're going to be able to come in and it's going to be like a part of your onboarding package. Like they come in, they get, okay, I need to read chapter 1, how to operate and overwhelm. Chapter number 2, how to execute on information as fast as it comes. Like I had this whole idea in my mind because it's a lot of information. And I know Shaan's not the only individual that does their best to deliver to the highest degree. So I'm going to give you guys some insights and get some insights from Junior, because we've both had coaches. We both have coaches and we've both been in courses before. So I think tailoring the second segment of this of the call to how to take a course, how to implement on course information, I think would be very powerful. How to execute on a coach's insights as a good student and as a coachable pupil is something that a lot of people might like some perspective on. So as a coachee, as a mentee, one of the things that I've learned is don't think, just do. A lot of times when we are getting coaching or paying for services, we think that we're paying for the results, but we're really paying for the access, because the information is what creates the transformation. The execution, granted, on that information is what solidifies it. So the right information, how did Martin Luther King put it? He says, knowledge is power. That's true. So when you get into a course and when you get a coach, what you're doing is you're purchasing power. You're purchasing information. You're getting access to knowledge. But if you don't act on that knowledge, the raw power is never channeled and it never converts or transforms the individual that's received the knowledge. So one of the first things that I learned was your coach's job and the course's job is to be a power source. Your job is to connect to the power source and then channel that power toward a singular goal. So for example, when I was going through Branded Like a Leader, I got a ton of information. I couldn't use all that information at one time. So what did I do? I got access to the power and I plugged in. Boom. Once I plugged in, it was my job as the coachee or the mentee to find something that I could channel this power toward. One of the things that we were recommended to do was go live. So that's what I did. I said, I'm taking this, all of this power, and I'm going to go live. And when I went live, I didn't think. I didn't think about what my results were going to be. I didn't think about who was going to show up and who wasn't. I didn't think about if my coach lied to me or not. Shaan said, go do what I said, come back and tell me it doesn't work. And if it does work, then keep doing it. If it doesn't work, let me know that I've misinformed you and I will ensure to get you the most up-to-date information. So that's one thing that I'll share before I turn it over to Junior to get some of his insights. And we're just going to go back and forth on different strategies and techniques to actually execute. So my point was, don't think. When you get access, tap into the power source and channel that power toward a singular goal. You're not going to be able to leverage everything you learn. You're not supposed to. Repetition deepens the impression. What you're supposed to do is tap in, connect, channel, and execute on one thing until it works. And then back to the power source, refocus, rechannel, re-execute. What is your experience, Junior? What do you do when taking a course or when learning from a coach?
Well, very interesting. So those are two different questions. When I'm learning from a coach, I empty my cup. So I pretend as if I don't know anything. I empty my cup and I become coachable. So you have to be coachable. That's the first thing. If you're not coachable, you cannot be coached. And if you feel like you know more than the coach, then you cannot be coached. So I empty my cup when I'm working with a coach and I just listen. I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to know. I don't you know there's a saying, Bobby. Nowadays we have a lot of pretenders. Okay? So it's better to be a contender, not a pretender. Okay? So I'm a contender, I'm not a pretender. I'm not pretending to be an expert of something I'm not an expert in. I'm a contender that is contending the best possible spot and I'm seeking to learn, I'm seeking to grow. So when I encounter a coach, I empty my cup, pretend like I don't know anything, and I just take in the information. Now, if I'm going for a course, my my thing is slightly different. So if you really think about what you're doing, like let's look at what we're doing at a high level. And I wrote down this formula. I wrote down information plus action equals results plus data. So information plus action equals results plus data. Because if you really think about what you're doing when you're taking a course, you're taking a course to get a specific result. So maybe you're taking a course because you want to attract clients. The trouble is, this is new information for you. So what is the likelihood of you implementing new information and getting it right on the first time? The likelihood is very low. So if you look at what you intended to do with a course, you're intended to get information, take action on the information that you get. You're going to get a result that may or may not be the result that you want, but then you're also going to get data. So when I say data, I mean feedback. So let's say I'm building a website. I'm taking a course to learn how to build a website. The course says you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to do steps 1 through 5. I do steps 1 through 5. I take action on that, but my website doesn't look as good. I got a result, but I also got feedback. I got data. So what you're supposed to do when taking a course is you're supposed to take that data, okay? You're supposed to learn from that feedback, learn from that data, which becomes new information. You take new action, you get a different result, and then you get some more data. And as you continually go through this process, the results that you get become more and more refined. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. So that's what I do. I take the information, I immediately try to implement the information. I understand, hey, even if I'm implementing, I may not get this right the first time, but I also understand that I'm going to know what I'm doing wrong by the time I finish implement. So I take the data or the feedback from what I'm doing wrong. I learn from it. I take new action. Okay. I learn new information. I take new action. I get new results and I get new data and I just continually do the process until I get the result that I'm looking for.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And one thing that I wrote down very similar is assume you're doing it wrong until you get it right. So if you have a coach or you purchased a course that other people are winning with and you genuinely trust the coach and their ability to get results, if you're not getting the results, assume you're doing something wrong. Assume you're doing something wrong, or what Junior likes to say sometimes is you're not doing enough of the right things. You're doing it right, but you're not doing enough. So those are two predispositions that I use. Like if I'm not getting the result that I require or that I desire, I'm thinking either I'm doing something wrong or I'm not doing enough of what I'm already doing. And then I A/B split test. So I'll add a 10 to my execution or multiply my execution by 10. And then if that doesn't work, and I do that first, by the way, I do that first because you'll find out faster. So if I'm making 10 calls and I multiply that by 10 and I make 100 calls and I still get the exact same result, okay, I could do that in one day and find out if that was it or not. I could do that over 3 days just to be for good measure to ensure. If I get the same result and I did 300 calls over 3 days and I'm still where I was, then I know I'm doing something wrong. Or excuse me, yeah, I know I'm doing something wrong. Now, let's say I was doing 10 and then I increased it and then I started getting results. I knew I wasn't doing enough. So that's just one way to gauge execution. But one of the things that I wanted to share from my side is that you want to have what winning looks like, a target. So for most people, you know the game football. Like put a 1 in the chat if you know the game football, as we call it in America, not as they call it in St. Lucia. That's soccer. No, but football. If you know football, then you know the game has touchdown, right? You got a touchdown. That's the goal. And then you have the first down, second down, third down, fourth down. So after you get 4 attempts to get to the goal line. Now, as you're using these attempts, if you get closer and closer to the goal line, those attempts reset. And that's as far as we're going to go into the game of football. But what I wanted to show you with that example was that we know what winning looks like. You don't have to cross the goal line in order to know that you were making solid progress. And the reason this is important is because most people may say, I want to be a millionaire. And that's what winning is. But that's not what winning looks like. Very important yet subtle distinction. Business happens for different people at different times. And if you think you're going to win out of the gate and you don't, that could cause you to get discouraged and cause you to kind of stop working as hard. If you are going through the motions, going through the process, and don't feel like you're moving forward, that can cause you to feel stagnant and demotivated. Not that you need motivation to execute, but it really helps, right? To feel like you're moving forward. So what I like to do is I like to go in knowing where I am. And I like to say, if I'm right here right now, like if the challenge is to go live every day and I haven't ever gone live consistently, I can say winning is a 3-day live streak. The goal, obviously, is to maintain a social contract, create a social contract with my audience that is regular and effective so that I can generate leads. Like that's winning. That's like I've got a platform, I've got a podcast or a show, it's regular and people are coming to it and I'm getting leads. Like that's the end goal, but that's not what winning looks like for someone that's just starting. Winning looks like, on the other hand, one streak of 3 days in a row, 1 hour, no excuses. So that's what I like to do. And it really helps out a lot when you're trying to be patient with yourself because you're going to need time. That now let's go back to the 4D framework. Decide, discipline, development, and dominate. So what I just did with figuring out what winning looks like, and please, I hope you guys are taking this seriously and just sitting back and thinking about where you are and just starting to let this concept marinate. What does winning look like? Not what does the, not did I win? We all know that freedom, income, impact, independence, like that's I won. But it takes time to win. A game has a shot clock, a game clock, like it takes time. So what does winning look like? What does progress look like? So the 4D framework says decide. So decide what you want to improve on or what direction you want to go in. And then 2, discipline. Discipline yourself to do the 1 call a day for 3 days. And then once you hit 3 days, winning looks like 5 days. Then once you've done 5, winning looks like 10 days, right? So discipline yourself, then let it develop. So as you're going through the process of building your audience and people are coming to your regular call and people are starting to engage and putting ones in the chats and commenting, let it develop. And then dominate, put a stamp on it. Like, hey guys, this is what I do. This is the #1 platform for entrepreneurs and leaders looking to build industry leaders. Like this is a 3-year development. Now Breakfast with the Brand dominates, but this has been going on for over 36 months consistently, Monday through Saturday. But it was first just, I think, on Saturdays. But I turn it back over to Junior to get his insight on how to execute with consistency, because that's really important, and discipline.
Yeah, Bobby. So when it comes to consistency, to me, the only thing I could give you consistency is a system. And I'm not talking about a technological system. I'm talking about knowing how you run your day. So a system could be when you wake up in the morning, you jog. So that's something that you do. A system could be maybe you eat at a specific time during the day. Maybe you don't eat until a certain time in the day. Maybe there's a specific thing, like people get up, they have like 1 or 2 coffees during the day. Some people do tea, some people do coffee. Whatever that system is for you, you have to be able to set that up to give you the results that you want. So for me, it's like, what is your system for studying? What is your system for training? What is your system for working out? What is your system for business activity? What is your system for your family, for your relationship? You know, you have to put in measures in place to reduce as much, to me, thinking time as possible. Because we're all human beings. Like, I'm not perfect. Bobby's not perfect. If you leave us to our own devices, eventually we're gonna do something that's gonna throw us off our path. So for me, I try to make decisions beforehand so I don't have to try to think about the decision that I'm making in the moment. Now, other people are different. We have different personalities. Some people who are high Ds are very spontaneous type individuals. So they don't necessarily like to think beforehand. They like to think on the spot. Well, to these people, what I'll say is that if you're going to think on the spot, you have to really develop the discipline to make decisions very quickly. That's going to put you in the direction of what you need to do. But otherwise, most successful people that I know, they have some kind of system. So I was listening to an interview this morning with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about his system for when he gets up in the morning and some of the stuff that he does. He does like cold plunges, and then he'll do the sauna, and then he eats a specific way, and he just gets into it. So, and he's not the only one. Like most successful people, they have this specific morning routine or something that they do every single day. Maybe they work out in between breaks. Maybe they work out twice a day. Maybe they eat once a day. There's something specific that they're doing on a consistent basis. In fact, I heard one individual, he is so consistent that when he flies, when he travels, he will have his team pre-pack food and fly the food over with him. So if he's staying in a hotel, let's say he's from Texas and he's staying in a hotel in Florida, he will have his food delivered via plane to Florida, so that when he gets to Florida, he doesn't eat anything different than when he's in Texas.
Yeah.
That is the level of discipline and consistency that we're talking about. Now, obviously, you have to have a certain amount of money to do that. So I'm not saying that you should do that, but I'm saying what are some of the things that you can do in your life to sort of streamline the thinking process so you don't have to do it yourself. So that when you encounter situations that may throw you off of your discipline, you've already made that decision. You don't have to think about it again.
Right.
So that's a system. A system is not just technology, a system is also a way of doing something, a predetermined way of doing something to give you a predetermined result. So that's what I would recommend. That's what I do for myself. I have systems in place, and most successful people, in fact, every successful person that I know has some kind of system in place. Because I guarantee you, most of the time when we make decisions in the moment, we end up making the wrong decision. For example, you go to the supermarket. Now, you're on a diet. You see a nice slice of cheesecake. Maybe you love cheesecake. In that moment, you have to decide, am I going to get the cheesecake or am I going to, pass it up? Most of us, we're going to get that cheesecake. I know I would. If I didn't make a predetermined decision that, hey, this month I'm staying off the cheesecake. I've already made the decision. So when I encounter the factors that may throw me off, I don't have to make the decision again because I've already made the decision. And that's what I'm talking about. Like putting things in place where you've already made predetermined decisions to give you predetermined results.
Junior, you just you just put on a clinic in like 1 to 2 minutes, and I love it. Like, one thing that I'll say about the cold plunge, about working out early in the morning, I do not know the part of the brain this is called, but I think it's called the hypothalamus, or I don't understand it fully, but I'll try to put it in the chat after this is over. But it's a part in the brain that grows when people do what they don't want to do. And it's linked to an individual's willpower. So stated by neuroscientists that this part of the brain, when researched in people that constantly do things that they don't want to do, it's larger, and these people tend to live longer. And the research is leaning toward this aspect of your brain having something to do with the will to live. Now, what's all this got to do with business and discipline and what we're talking about? What I have found is that most people aren't where they want to be. I've been here too, myself included. Like most people aren't where hypothalamus. I think that's it. The hypothalamus. Thank you, Michelle. That part of the brain grows when people do what they don't want to do. Now, the problem is most people don't grow their hypothalamus because they do what they want to do all the time. Like they eat what they want to eat when they want to eat, like when they feel like eating it. They see a commercial of sliced hot pizza and they just order. Like, wait, what? I wasn't even thinking about pizza, but because I saw it on the TV, I'm getting some. And then they'll be like, maybe in a relationship, oh, I don't like what you said to me, and it's over. They'll hang up the phone, never talk to you again. Like, and all of these different things are just people doing what they want to do, doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, with no consequences whatsoever. The cold plunge, the working out in the morning, the disciplined diet, what that does is it increases the will. And the will is directly linked to discipline. And I have found personally in my own life that when I have a series of days where I do what I want to do and I don't align myself with my responsibilities, then my will starts to get weaker and I can't fight off temptations as much. And then once I get to like, I'm in a cycle, then I like fall off. It's like, oh my gosh, it's hard to do what I know I should do. It's hard to do the things that I used to wake up and do. So what does this also say before I pass it back to Junior to close us out? The hypothalamus has also been studied to shrink and expand. The more you use it, the bigger it gets, the more willpower you have, and the more strength you have to do what you know you should do. The less you exercise, the less will you exert over yourself and over your life, the smaller it gets to a point where it's just its base size. So I just share that with you guys to say this: do hard things every day. Do things you don't want to do every single day, and do them early. Do them as quickly as you possibly can. Because if you grow the hypothalamus every day and you continue to be consistent every day, what will happen is your discipline and your will begin to work together in ways that create almost a force field of execution. And then little things that come into your path will be like smited out of the way by your execution, by your discipline, and by your willpower. And that's what you want, in my experience, if you're looking for a life system, like a personal system to help you execute at higher levels. You got anything before we get out of here, Junior?
Yeah, I like, what I'll say is it all begins with one day. It all begins with one decision. So I know we've spoken about a lot, but the way you get there is by taking action at the end of the day. So start with something small. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's moving towards perfection. We're all working on each other. We're all working on ourselves. So to the person that's looking, I would say just start with one step. Start with one step, start with one day, and try to win that day. So try to win today. And then once you win today, you'll develop the willpower to win tomorrow, and then the day after that, and then the day after that. So that's my take on that, Bobby. I mean, we've spoken about a lot, but I don't want people to think like, okay, this is out of my reach or this is something that I cannot do. This is something you could absolutely do. Start with a small win. Start with something small. And eventually, that small thing will eventually evolve into something big. Thank you very much. This has been Breakfast with the Brand. See you on Monday. Let's grow.